Welcome, everyone, to the HeroX Innovation Leadership Speaker Series. I'm Jamie Elliott. I'm joined today by Tish Fletcher, Innovation Team Director for the City of Birmingham. Tish, it's really great to have you. Thank you so much for joining. Tell us a bit about yourself and about your innovation journey so far.
Yes, thank you, Jamie, for having me. So, yes, like you said, I serve as the Innovation Team Director for the City of Birmingham. And essentially, our work sits at the intersection of service design or human centered design, you may have heard of, systems change. The foundation of it is building community trust. So, my background is rooted in service to people. So, whether I was working in sales, account management, strategic partnerships, teaching, coaching, or even the creative industry, it always centered around understanding and service to people. So, understanding how policies, programs, and systems actually show up in people's everyday lives, especially in communities where people are underserved. That is primarily my journey, if you will. And what drew me to innovation in government, it never crossed my mind. Luckily, I was out in the field serving in a different role and capacity, and someone asked me if I had thought about serving in this role, and I was like, no, I hadn't thought about it, but let me dig into it. And it was really that person's belief in what I could do, and then with this current administration, just belief in the administration, and belief that cities could and should operate with the same curiosity, empathy, and accountability that we expect from customer focused organizations. So for me, it's not about a bunch of pilots or anything like that. A lot of people think innovation, like I get tons of emails of like, hey, we have this new technology we would love for you to try out. I'm like, that's not really in my purview, but I'll pass it on to someone else. But it's really about listening to people, testing thoughtfully, and delivering services that truly, truly work for residents. So if you're not a good listener, this is not the best role for you.
Wow, that's powerful. So tell me about Birmingham and how this fits into what the city is doing.
So I went to undergrad here in Birmingham many years ago, moved to LA shortly after graduating to work in the TV film industry, and have landed in a few other industries. And then I was looking to get back south, and Birmingham was on the list of options. And so Birmingham won. There was a role that just made sense. They were doing some really cool things here. The mayor, I moved back in 2019. Our mayor started his role here, I think it was 2017. And I was working for a different partner, not for the city, but I was working with a community partner. And it's interesting because before my move here, I was talking to a friend of mine who I've known for many years. And I told him, what my options were. And he said I should move back to Birmingham because of this phenomenal new mayor who was really making a change. I was like, really? And he's like, "Yes." He's like, "Trust me, Birmingham has grown leaps and bounds, and, with the administration, cool, innovative things are happening." And so that's what brought me to Birmingham because I heard from a friend and a trusted source that things were changing and things were improving and people were excited about what was possible again, about dreaming together again. And so that's what brought me back to Birmingham. Like I said, I'm not from here. My grandfather was from here, and I grew up coming here in the summers for like family reunions and things. But it was nice to come back and into a familiar place, but also different, if that makes sense. Familiar in terms of just the level of comfort and community. There were a few people that I still knew from college that were here, but it was also very different. And so it's been a great place to be.
So you mentioned something that I find interesting because
Mhm.
I think you're absolutely right that oftentimes we associate or correlate innovation with technology and
Mhm.
with new things,
Mhm.
right? And you've also mentioned serving and service and helping underserved communities and listening. So I'm curious, how how does Birmingham innovate differently? And
Mm.
can you tell me more about these things that you've mentioned and how you all do these things? What does service look like? What does listening look like? What does human-centered design look like in the city of Birmingham?
Sure thing. So, our team operates within the mayor's office, which is very helpful. We're appointed staff, so we're able to work across city departments, across community partnerships, and with residents. So, that in and of itself is a phenomenal start in the way that we are positioned. Our team is positioned in terms of access and support. And so, what makes our approach different is that we don't start with solutions; we start with people, and that's what I mean by human centered design. You could also, some people call it asset based community development. I also have a backgrounds, health and wellness coaching. And so, what we talk about appreciative inquiry or motivational interviewing. So, like when you're talking to someone, you want to understand their lived experience. And it might not be a resident, it could even be one of our colleagues. And so, you want to identify friction points and then essentially co-design better systems alongside those people that are most impacted. So that doesn't matter if it's something related to service in the community. Well, are you talking to residents that will be impacted? Are you talking to the service providers that will be impacted? Are you also talking to the departments within the city that are impacted, as well as the partners within the city that will be impacted? And how do they approach this? I want to say most people would say problem, but I prefer to say opportunity. How would they approach this opportunity? And what is their perspective? And so that has been key for us, is not to start with solutions, not to start with, well, we've always done it this way and this is what has worked, but that is your own personal experience. But what about the experience of other people, like residents, of course? We also, we take our core values very seriously in the city. So, what we call CETA, and that's customer service, efficiency, effectiveness, transparency, and accountability. And it's serious for us because it means designing services that feel respectful and relatable to residents. Like, have you considered our perspective, reducing duplication and silos? So, like I said, we work across city government, across departments, and also being clear on what we're testing, piloting, learning, uh, and what's changing. So, innovation for us is definitely not a side project. It's also not just technology. Sometimes it is. Sometimes, most times, it's not. It's a way of working that helps the administration deliver better outcomes citywide. So that's what we are most excited about.
Yeah, I'm familiar with a lot of these things that you've mentioned. I want to help for listeners put some names to them as well. I assume you all use processes in your human-centered design like
Mhm.
user journey mapping. And
Yes.
some of the elements that I heard there sound a lot like that, right?
Mhm.
You don't talk about the solution and the idea that you have to fix things. You start with the problems, and it's best to understand a problem in the
Mhm.
context of a journey.
Mhm.
And it sounds like, so for our listeners, on a user journey map, you've got these steps in a journey, and then you have all these different players
Yes.
that interact, right? And you just mentioned all those roles and people you need to talk to, because you don't know you don't know a problem's root cause if you don't start there. And
Exactly.
right? Right. And
Exactly.
so, and then you also, just by listening, it's so important to hear what's important to them, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if your solution will fix the problem if it's not important to the constituents.
Mhm.
It has to be both. It has
Yeah,
to fix the problem and help them with the way they see the problem. So
absolutely.
it's a tough thing.
It is. And you know what makes it easier for us? I have to give credit to my team. We're a small but mighty team. It's a team of 3. So I serve as the director, but I also have a civic designer, which is not a common role in city government. So he has lived and breathed human-centered design and service design. And then I also have a data analytics manager who focuses on the quantitative data that we collect, and how data driven solutions can impact our work. So I have to give credit to the team because there's no way I could do this by
Yeah,
myself without
for
their
sure.
support.
For sure. Very nice. Yeah, we have a with that lived experience piece as well. We have a challenge actually that will be wrapping up in the next month
Mhm.
with the NIH called Community Champions for Disability Health. And it's
Nice.
open to only 1C3
Mhm.
nonprofit organizations that are doing something for disabled populations in their
Mm.
community. And they've had 1 year to scale and test their solutions and try to reach more people. And it's just so powerful. It's so and you get to share these things with them, but just to be a part of it and to see the type of impact that they're having.
Yeah.
Very moving. Are there any programs or impacts that you can share with us about, for things you guys have been working on?
Yes, more broadly, when we came into this role, it was in response to a grant, and that particular grant is focused on one specific community within Birmingham. So, the cool thing about Birmingham is that there are 99 neighborhoods and 23 communities. And within those 23 communities, we're focused on one community in particular. And this community was a heavy industry area, if you will, surrounded by train tracks. And three of the six neighborhoods that we are focused on supporting have been deemed an EPA Superfund site. And we have been working to address those opportunities and problems and challenges for them. So, really, our current portfolio focuses on improving how those residents access services and experience government, also building trust and rebuilding trust with them, particularly in a community like that has faced layered challenges over the years. So that includes service intake and navigation redesign, making it easier for residents to access multiple supports without retelling their story over and over. Could you imagine how irritating that would be? We had one resident who was like, "We are heavily researched because we're also in a city that has quite a few universities. And because of this particular community, they have been heavily researched. And so they want to see at this point, what are the outcomes? What are the solutions from this research? And so we're also exploring climate and resilience focused service pilots that we are launching very soon. One focused on energy efficiency, another focused on healthy homes and reducing household burden while improving their quality of life. And then also data and storytelling tools to help city leaders and partners better understand where systems are working and where they're not. So, across all of our work, our role is truly to prototype, test, learn very quickly. So, kind of fail fast, if you will,
Mhm.
but we're also given the space and grace to do that, which is a blessing. And then help other departments scale what works.
Very nice. Yeah, it's interesting working with communities because when you work, I think, for a government and you have the resources that you believe can help people,
Mhm.
then you want to be top of mind, right? You want to be, when they have a problem, the thing they think of first, the entity they think of first that's going to support them. And there's a lot of work that goes into trying to become top of mind for people, right?
It
Because
does.
often in those communities, top of mind is asking your neighbor or asking your family member, right? And
Mhm.
so you're trying to embed yourself in the community so that,
Absolutely.
right?
You
We
nailed
we
it,
did
Jamie.
one we did one with Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and
Mhm.
Academy Health because um a couple years ago, I think 2 years ago, cancer patient navigation services were
Mm.
approved as Medicaid expense or Medicare
Mm.
expense. And so patient navigators need to help their patients navigate, you've
Mhm.
been given a tough diagnosis, you have a journey ahead of you,
Mhm.
and people want to help you make that journey as easy as possible. And so this was all about creating data solutions that break down those silos and allow data to flow when the patient allows it to, or when the health unit allows it to, so that people can explore those better. Yeah, it's all a part of just trying to become, like I said, top of mind.
Absolutely. It's so ironic that you mentioned patient navigators because one of the things that we have learned from residents is that they need support and access to the services. So even if the city office a service or partners offer a service, they need a person to help them along the way. So most vulnerable communities need the most help, as you can imagine. And so we're also testing out service navigators and to have a service hub. So a centralized location within the community where people, kind of like a mini city hall, where people can come and receive some of their most critical services and receive support regarding those most critical services. So I'm glad that you mentioned patient navigators because
Yeah.
it reminded me that that is something that we're also prototyping and piloting.
I know from personal experience, innovating in government can be tough. It's a constantly changing landscape, different priorities. It's a different animal. And so I'm curious if you have advice for other government innovators, for other people trying to do similar things to what you're doing. Yeah, what would you tell them?
A few things. First, I'll go back to how you talked about being embedded in the community. You can't avoid that. You can't avoid community engagement. That means if your neighbors or neighborhoods have neighborhood association meetings, you need to be at those meetings. You need to get to know who the residents are. And that also means not just going to those meetings. That might actually mean you go their to their Christmas parties, to their galas. Like last week, the last 2 weeks, my team, we've divided and conquered going to social opportunities to know that we really care about them. When we hear about someone in their family has passed, we give them a card, not out of any expectation, but because we are people, they are people. Although we are providing a city service, we want them to understand that we care about them and what's happening in their life. And so that means approaching a community engagement, if you will, differently. That means building trust. That means nurturing those relationships. So there's that. And then one of the biggest thing is probably embracing ambiguity. That's not something that most people are comfortable with, but you have to get comfortable embracing that. Innovation work starts and or rarely starts with a very clear answer, and that's okay. Some people want to start with clarity, but that's not where we start. And we have to start with asking questions, just going back to listening. You have to ask questions and listen. Second, don't confuse speed with progress. We started May of last year, and we are just now starting to prototype, test, and learn from our research and from the time that is taken to build trust. So take the time to understand the problem before rushing to solutions. And then third, I would say build trust before you build tools. So that goes back to what does community engagement really look like? So you're building trust with residents, with staff. So your colleagues, I mean, we're a small but mighty team. So that means that we have to rely on other departments to implement and to work with us and to enjoy working with us. We don't want to be that team like, oh gosh, here they come again with a new idea. No, we want to be the team, and we're blessed to have built that to be invited into these conversations to provide support. So you want to build that trust with resident staff and leadership. And finally, remember that innovation in the public sector, especially, Jamie, is a team sport. Like you have to build relationships and nurture those relationships. The real work happens really at the intersection of all of these things. The intersection of policy, the intersection of operations, data, lived experience, community. So if you can hold all of those together, the impact follows. And that's what we're expecting to see.
This is really powerful stuff. I think it's also helpful when it sounds like you have the supportive leadership, you have this supportive environment. And like you said, it's a team effort. It's one thing to have a good idea. And a lot of people that you'll talk to will tell you how to fix things,
Hmm.
but it has to start with taking a step together. And it's really great messaging. I really, really like that.
Yeah.
And so how can folks learn more about City of Birmingham and what you all are up to and get involved?
Yeah, so the best way to get involved and stay connected is to follow the City of Birmingham's work on all platforms. Also, our team has a small presence online, BHAM Innovation. I think that's on Facebook and Instagram. And then also, bhaminnovation.com, I believe, is our website. And then through public meetings, community sessions, and opportunities to partner with departments just locally. It doesn't have to be Birmingham, but look for ways to innovate in your own city. So those for those who are working in government or civic innovation, we're always open to exchanging ideas, so sharing lessons learned. So feel free to reach out via LinkedIn. And just remember that innovation really improves when we stop competing and start collaborating. So at the end of the day, our goal is very simple to help government work better for the people it serves. So that's what we're focused on. It's not about doing something new just for the sake of it. It's about doing what works for the people who need it the most.
Wonderful, wonderful. Tish, thank you so much for your time. This has been a deeply insightful conversation, and I'm very excited to share it with the world. And I really, really thank you for your work, for your community, and for spending some time with us.
Thank you for the opportunity, Jamie.
Take care.